This is Jackie here with the Sexy Politico. I'm here speaking with Shane. Shane is a political. You've got your own political podcast, and you're a comedian. Could you tell the Sexy Politico more about you in a more succinct, better, better spoken way?
Sure, yeah, no problem. So my name is Shane Rogers. I am a comedian, stand-up comedian, been for about 10 years now. And I co-host a podcast called Midnight Facts for Insomniacs that is not politically oriented, that one. I also co-hosted for quite a while a political podcast that is now slightly defunct. We'll see what happens with it in the future. But yeah, I'm also just very interested in politics and have been involved in the political punditry game for a while.
Yes, I've been running the Sexy Politico since 2012. So I've been here for a little bit myself, but podcasting's rather new for me. So these elections have been these elections have definitely been different than what everybody was expecting. My father watches Fox News and they kept talking about this red wave that never came about. Now, what what do you think of all of Fox News speaking about taking voting rights away from single women and young people?
Um, well, taking voting rights away, you mean that plans to disenfranchise
They
people or
they are literally speaking about disenfranchising people under the age of 21 because
right?
they didn't it feels as though they're just mad that they didn't vote the way they wanted them to.
Sure. I mean, that's a cynical ploy because people under 21, between 18 and 21, tend to be more liberal. And, to be fair, I think we on the left have our own machinations. We all want to get an advantage. So I understand certainly strategically why they're pushing for that. But it's very cynical. It's obviously disenfranchising people is never a good strategy for anything, I think. But yeah, they are seeing the writing on the wall that demographics do not favor them going forward, and that's been that way for a while. And so they look for ways to game the system, and we've seen that a lot with the gerrymandering that's happened. Again, I think it's important to point out that Democrats gerrymander too, and Democrats look for advantages. Politics, in a lot of ways, is a game for the people who are politicians who are involved in it, and they're always looking for ways to win. But there are ways I think that are damaging to democracy and ways that are less damaging. And Fox News doesn't seem to care that much, and people on the right don't seem to care that much about the institution of
Usually
democracy at this
usually
point.
voting is a especially in midterms, young people don't usually come out to vote. And so at this last midterm, we had more young people voting than I think what I read since the 1970s when people under the age of 21 could vote for the first time. So this is where their numbers are different. It's they were assuming that this group of people, only 30% of them were going to vote, and almost 50% of this group of people voted. And that 20% that voted did not vote Republican. They voted Democrat. And then single women 63% of single women voted Democrat, and it was about the abortion issue. Republicans thought the economy was gonna be the issue of the day, and it wasn't. The Dobbs decision is backfiring on them.
Yeah, that was huge, and I think they really underestimated the impact of Dobbs. And I do think also that they didn't, even when it comes to the economy, they didn't really lay out a plan that made any sense. I mean, they didn't seem like they were a viable alternative. So even when you have the economy struggling, if all you're going to do is harp on, culture war issues and cancel culture, you're not giving an alternative. You're not telling us what you're going to do about the economy. You're just telling us the economy is bad, blame the people in power. But you have to give an explanation of how you're going to change things. And so I think that Dobbs was huge. But I think that also, they really thought they were going to coast on the historical trend of midterms, and that didn't end up happening. It is interesting. I mean, the Democrats, we are taking a bit of a victory lap. Ultimately, we lost the House. This is historically an impressive an impressive showing, just because we usually do terribly in the midterms, but it's a little bit like getting your hand cut off and being like, well, I really thought I was going to get my whole arm cut off. So this is, things turned out pretty well for us. I guess. I mean, ultimately, we did lose seats in the House, and we may pick up one seat in Georgia. I'm optimistic. Walker is such a weak candidate. I'm optimistic that we'll probably take that extra seat, and that would go, that would be great to kind of nullify the Manchin cinema vote, maybe. But beyond that, I mean, it wasn't an amazing route by the Democrats. It just wasn't the bloodletting that we thought it was going to be.
It wasn't the red wave,
Right.
but this is the closest house that we've had since World War One. There at this point, there's only a two-seat majority in the House for the Republicans. So there could be instances of Republicans switching sides on different issues. And then you have Kevin McCarthy. I'm gonna say Kevin McCarthy not having the leadership capabilities and the number of people saying that they're not going to vote for him for Speaker of the House. There doesn't seem to be the cohesion in the Republican Party that there was when Trump was president. I mean, do you think that Trump announcing his candidacy is actually helping or hurting the Republican Party?
I think at this point, Trump is always hurting the Republican Party. There's not a lot that he can do. He is a loser in many ways. He lost for his party. He lost the presidency. He lost the House and the Senate, and then is partly, at least, also to blame, I think, for the lack of a red wave. So, Trump is an albatross around their neck, and I think he will be going forward unless anything major changes. Um, and I think they're starting to figure that out. I'm not as optimistic as you are that McCarthy won't win the speakership. I think the troops tend to kind of change their tune when it comes down to the actual vote. So we'll see. He is willing to kowtow to the most extreme, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Matt Gaetzes of the GOP. And it's true that they have a slim majority, and that some of the people who won in states where you wouldn't expect Republicans to win. We have some Republican House members now from New York who are probably a little bit more moderate. So he is going to have some trouble. It's going to be like wrangling cats. But I also think that they still are going to all row in the same direction, and so we'll see what happens. Time will tell. But I'm not as optimistic that the House is going to be super divided. I think that when it comes to investigating, focusing on the stupid Hunter Biden laptop, we're going to get those investigations. They're all going to get on board with that. And I think we have to brace ourselves for that. I don't think we can be too optimistic.
I know we have to brace ourselves for the Hunter Biden laptop. I don't know another word for it other than bullshit, but it doesn't feel as though we're gonna have the lockstep that the Democrats have under Nancy Pelosi.
We'll see. I hope you're right. I think that is a possibility. But like I said, I do think that they all tend to get on board when they need to, and we'll see. Historically, Republicans have been able to be very effective when it comes to being obstructionist. That is one thing that
Yeah,
they're really good at. They're not great at getting things done, but they're sure great at stopping anyone else from getting things done.
and they're also really great at messaging.
They are really good at messaging, and they tend to stay on topic and on brand, and so I think we can brace ourselves for 2 years of nothing but Hunter Biden and Afghanistan, and it's going to be rehashing all of this stuff. And unfortunately, they have some real, we'll see whether it's good for them or not, but right now they have some real headwinds when it comes to having someone like Musk. Right now, as we're talking, there's this huge Hunter Biden laptop nonsense blowing up on Twitter, where Musk is saying that Twitter had intentionally buried the Biden laptop story, and he's releasing what he's calling the Twitter files, which are all of the internal communications that supposedly prove that the Hunter Biden laptop was suppressed. So, right now we're seeing the effects of this already starting, and I think it's just going to be an onslaught of this. And again, I don't want to be the doomsayer, And I think that ultimately, if they go down this path, ultimately it's not going to be good for them because I think, again, Americans do care more about solutions. People are looking for
Hmm.
what are you going to do about the economy? What are you going to do about protecting a woman's right to choose? And they have no interest in that because they don't have any answers for it. So what they're going to do is continue focusing on these red herrings and trying to distract. But I think in the short term, it's going to be effective. I don't think I'm optimistic that it won't be effective in 2024, but I think it's certainly going to provide a smokescreen for now, and it's just pretty frustrating to watch.
It absolutely is frustrating to watch, and it's frustrating because we also I do see Gen Z getting upset and frustrated that these younger candidates aren't coming in, and these younger people who are more pro environmental issues and things of that nature aren't being elected, aren't getting the money behind them and things of that nature. And how do we start pushing these older people out of office and bringing in these younger people?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I don't have a great answer because unfortunately, once again, it's kind of a both parties problem. Like
Yeah.
Biden is no spring chicken and he's probably not the best candidate for 2024, but all indications are that he's probably going to run again. Now, I think if he runs against Trump, I think he's still got a pretty good chance. He's beaten him before and Trump certainly isn't getting any stronger in the interim. But, if he runs against a DeSantis, it's not looking great. We do need to cultivate a younger generation in our within our politics. Um, we've got people like Dianne Feinstein on the left as well, who are honestly they have no business being in politics at this point. They're not even coherent, and
We
so
have
I think this is a both parties problem. But I think that if the Democrats can take the lead on this, I would love to see some younger candidates get some real traction. Um, and I hope that that happens. I would love to see Biden potentially step aside in 2024, especially if Trump somehow doesn't win the nomination. Um, but I don't know. I don't know. What do you think? Who would you like to see run in 2024?
God, I mean, Kamala Harris had a great platform. It feels as though the vice presidency has just completely pushed her aside and completely silenced her, in which I wonder if that was the point, was to silence her during the Biden administration. And they're like, oh, well, she hasn't done anything in the last 3 years, but she had this great message beforehand.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Kamala. I unfortunately don't think she would win. She's
No.
not super popular. Like you said, she's been kind of marginalized in this administration, which is unfortunate to see. I don't know how much of that is Biden and how much of it is kind of her people not maybe being um,
Or the office in
effective enough,
general.
or I mean, yeah, the office is not. I think we saw the same thing with Biden under Obama. He wasn't super visible and effective. You're basically a figurehead. So I would love to see Kamala as president. I don't necessarily want her to run because I don't think she can win. I would certainly vote for her. I would love to see someone like a Buttigieg or a Beto. Those they're younger, they're energetic, they're sort of exciting to me. Buttigieg is just a really really intelligent, uh, articulate, and effective politician. And
And
but
sad
yes,
to say it, but him being these younger white men would be more likely to be elected.
yeah, I mean, he is gay, so that could be a benefit to him within a lot of communities. It gives him a little bit of an X factor. It's something that is not he's not just your standard cis white male. So I think he has that going for him. At the same time, obviously, there are a lot of people who are still homophobic, even on the left, and they might not admit it, but they might be less likely to vote for him once they had to get into the actual voting booth. So
I
it'll
mean,
be interesting.
you take all the crap that he got for taking paternity leave.
Yeah.
That was stupid.
Yeah, I think it really does reveal how we are very, in a lot of ways, America has made quite a few strides forward. But I think we all got very complacent, and especially under Obama, we felt like, oh well, we're moving to this colorblind world of harmony going forward. And then with the election of Trump, you got to see like, oh no, we're not.
No,
We've
no.
got a lot of work to do. And Trump has really emboldened people to embrace the worst parts of themselves. And so we're seeing a resurgence of a lot of that. It's been sad.
My husband is ethnically Chinese, and right after the Trump election, there was a lot of issues that he had. He worked at a public high school in Virginia, and it wasn't pretty. Let's just leave it there. It wasn't pretty.
Oh, I can imagine. I mean, my wife is black. And so, we certainly didn't deal with, there was a lot of anti-Asian sentiment, I know. So
Oh,
that was
the number of people who
hard.
would cross the streets
Yeah.
during COVID, especially. Luckily, luckily we never had the go back home or anything like that. But
Yeah.
a nice few racist comments are just, are great to hear, especially we have kids. So
Yeah.
that's one
Yeah.
reason we moved.
Yeah, we are very lucky in that we live in Santa Cruz, California, which is like one of the most liberal areas in the world. But it also is one of the least, it's not a diverse area, especially when it comes to black and white. My wife is the only black person within miles of our neighborhood here. It's very noticeable. And so everywhere she goes, she is the one black person there. And um, it I also go move around, travel around a lot for comedy, and we would go to small towns and things, and she would come with me a lot. Um, and it was noticeable. There was a noticeable difference. There was a lack of, there was more discomfort with the fact that we're in an interracial relationship, and there was more hostility. There was genuinely just hostility that we wouldn't have seen, that people would have hidden in the past, that they felt like they didn't need to hide anymore.
It's it's not great sometimes when you have kids and you're in a mixed race relationship in there, and it's like, oh, what do you call your kids? And I'm like, I call them their names.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine.
It's like, I call them their names. I don't, I'm not like, this is my half Chinese, half white child.
Yeah. It is funny how people are so, in some ways, so uncomfortable dealing with it, and in other ways, just so inappropriate and overly confident about saying inappropriate things. It's funny to navigate that, because some people just are very nervous about like saying anything that might offend you, and then other people just bust out with all kinds of nonsense. So,
Literally went to Thanksgiving once and a friend of my husband's mother said, "Oh, look, it's the token Asian."
oh God, wow, yeah,
He's like,
we're very insulated in a lot of ways. We're luckily surrounded by all people who are very supportive, but man, it is crazy out there.
yeah. But so as we move forward, we get a slight little bit of break before all the 2024 stuff starts. And how many candidates do you think we're going to have in the Republican Party running for president?
So really interesting question. I don't know. I personally would be really surprised if DeSantis runs. I think that he's not a stupid guy. I don't like DeSantis, but he's not dumb. And it would really bruise the Republican Party. That would, Donald Trump is not going to go down, A, not going to go down without a fight, and B, if he does go down, he's going to take the party with him. I would not be surprised if he ran third party if he lost to DeSantis. And DeSantis knows that, and there is just no benefit to the two of them, butting heads. And so I don't think DeSantis runs. And if DeSantis doesn't run, we're going to have people, the rogues gallery of kind of Republican weirdos who don't have any chance. You're going to have Pence run. You're going to
Hmm.
have, someone like Laura Loomer is going to come out of the woodwork and declare her candidacy. We're going to have the nut jobs who have no chance. And I think that it kind of doesn't matter who runs unless DeSantis runs. I think it's going to be Trump. Um,
What
so
about Abbott?
yeah, I don't think that Abbott would take on Trump. I mean, Texas is so pro-Trump that it just hurts Abbott. You know, it just among his base, they love Trump. And so if he steps up and tries to take on their god figure, it's only gonna hurt him. So I don't think that the primary is going to be as packed and as well. It may be packed, but it's going to be packed mostly with people who don't matter and uh,
Yeah,
and immediately fold. And so
yeah.
we'll see.
It's
I think the only question is, does DeSantis run?
yeah. Because because as you said, if DeSantis wins, Trump is going to go third party. He's that big of a baby.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He will
And
go third party, split the ticket, and Democrats will win for the next until Trump dies, basically.
I would love it. I would love to see that. I'm rooting for DeSantis to run because even if Trump wins and beats DeSantis in the primary, he'll be really bruised by that. And there are a lot of DeSantis fans now who have gotten off the Trump train and are much more into the DeSantis camp, and they'll be upset. There's going to be a lot of people I think who would just stay home on the Republican side if Trump went after DeSantis. I saw, I was in like the Reddit forums. I always go check out like our conservative and see what they're saying in there. And when you know recently after the midterms, a lot of them really jumped off the Trump bandwagon. They were like, I supported Trump for 2 elections. He's lost. He's the past. We all need to get on the DeSantis bandwagon. So that'll be interesting. I really would love to see DeSantis do it, but I don't think he's that stupid.
You think anybody else would be crazy enough to do it though?
I think a lot of people are crazy enough to run. I don't think any of them have a chance. I think the people who have a chance would wait. If Trump wins in 2024, he's only got 4 years. And so you've got people who are the younger vanguard of the party who are going to be looking at, I only have to wait, 5 years from now, basically, 5.5 years, and I'm in. So I think that there's no, if you're doing the political calculus and you're on the right and you have a viable chance, there's really no benefit to taking on Trump at this point.
So we have we have right now Elon Musk burning down Twitter,
Yeah.
burning it to the ground, basically. Do you see Twitter existing in the next year?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't see, first off, Elon, for all the burning down that we're saying he's doing, he's still the richest human being in the world. Even though he's lost over $100 billion, he's still the richest human being on earth. That's how rich this man is. And so, even though his fortune is really based on Tesla stock and a bunch of things that are potentially volatile, he doesn't have a lot to worry about. He can continue to he could burn money in Twitter if he wants to. He could just keep it going. There's a great bit by the kind of Louis C.K., who is now sort of a disgraced comedian, but he had a great bit about back in the day about what he would do if he were really rich, and things like just buying all the pants in the world and setting them on fire. Just no more pants. We all just start over with pants. And that's the kind of money that Elon has. He can just buy Twitter and just burn it up and watch it explode and keep it going for as long as he wants. And he loves Twitter. He's addicted to Twitter. You can see he doesn't have any self control when it comes to tweeting. And so when you have that much money and there is one thing that you love and are addicted to, you're going to keep it alive. And so I don't see Twitter going under anytime soon. I think it's going to become more and more of a hotbed of right wing trollery, and it's going to eventually become. And I think hopefully over time it starts to shed users. What I've been really saddened to see is not just how addicted Elon is, but how addicted journalists and the left are, because no one's leaving. I left Twitter. I got, our podcast, Midnight Facts, we shut down our official account. I shut down my account. But I'm seeing so many people, celebrities, journalists, who just can't leave. They just can't go. And they're in this abusive relationship with Twitter now, but they won't leave. And so I don't think Twitter is in trouble as much as we think it is. I think that the advertising is going to eventually come back if Musk moderates. We'll see what happens there. But regardless, he's going to keep it alive, and I don't see people leaving. So it's a really weird situation. Someone needs to build a real alternative to Twitter, but there isn't one right now.
No,
So I don't
no.
know.
I mean, what, Truth Social?
Yeah. Well, and Mastodon, Hive, all these other, but they're decentralized. They there's a lot of you have to be more tech savvy to use them. They're
Yeah,
more
I'm like, what is Mastodon?
it's kind of like Discord. Like you create, it's like your
Oh,
servers, right? So everywhere you're in is a particular server. I think the servers can communicate a little bit more than they can in Discord, but it still is not Twitter. It's just not Twitter. And we need something that is like Twitter. There all these people are going to Tumblr, but Tumblr is not Twitter. It's nothing like Twitter. It's a blogging, site. So all of these alternatives that people are talking about, unfortunately, they don't fill that void. So we'll see what happens. There needs to be a real Twitter alternative, or potentially, you know, at some point, maybe enough people leave that they kind of start. It will be interesting because, Twitter has the benefit of being there. It's maybe the only place where there is a left and right that can argue, because you have True Social and you have Parler and Gab, and those are just right-wing echo chambers. And Twitter does have people of both sides in a town hall, like they like to say, just yelling at each other. And you just don't have that anywhere else, and anything else that's created right now is going to be created specifically for one side, because we're just so polarized that as soon as it's embraced by the left, the right is going to ignore it. So I don't see another Twitter coming in the future, and I don't know what we do about that. But I think we're just going to have to suffer through Twitter for quite a while here.
I think we just all like our echo chambers too much sometimes.
We do, and that is the one thing I'll give Twitter, is that at least up until the Elon era, it was one of the only places where there was genuine. It was a lot of yelling, but there was a genuine mix of differing viewpoints.
Although sometimes it didn't, it felt, it felt echo chamber. Maybe I just never used Twitter correctly because sometimes it just felt very echo chambery to me, but Twitter was never my favorite social media anyway.
Mine either. I was on there quite a bit just for news. It's really useful because of the journalist aspect. So many journalists put out information there before you get it anywhere else. They can break it
Mm.
live on Twitter, and you can get real-time interaction there. And so it was really useful in that way. But any social media can be an echo chamber because they give you the tools to block and filter, and so you can kind of create an echo chamber. But I'm really interested in sort of monitoring what the other side is doing. That's really important. I go to Fox News a lot, just to see, like, what are they saying. What's the narrative on Fox News, especially when something big happens, like Kanye, yay, going on, Alex Jones and declaring his love for Hitler. I go to Fox News to see, like, how are they going to spin this, because it's interesting to me. So I think if you want to, you can make anything an echo chamber, but I think it's important to sort of not embrace the other side, but be aware of what the other side is doing. So I try to keep that echo chamber a little bit wider than maybe some people do.
I think half the problems in this country comes from not reading the actual story and just reading the headlines.
That's true, although I just get frustrated by reading the actual stories on Fox News. So most of the time I just go and want to see, because the headlines do give you their overarching narrative. Because like you said, I think that's what most people are doing. A lot of people, especially on Fox News, they're just going there and reading the headlines. They're not interested in getting the full story. They just want to know, what is the overall narrative that I'm supposed to be upset about today? Is it critical race theory today? Is that what we're going to be mad about? Um, and they're not going to read because they're not that interested in the details.
Yeah, you ask somebody, ask a Republican what critical race theory is, and each one of them will give a different answer.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, even on the left, I think there's a lot of confusion about what critical race theory is. Um, it's just not very well understood, and it's been weaponized by the right.
Yeah, just like cancel culture.
Yeah, yeah. It's so funny to see people yelling about cancel culture from their platforms. Like, Dave Chappelle has been canceled, and he's had how many recent Netflix specials and how many more coming up. It's
Right.
just great. I mean,
It's like cancel. My father was like do you cancel people? It's like, I don't cancel people. I just choose not to support them. I have the right to do that.
Yeah,
And
and
he's
the
like,
right loves to cancel things. They're canceling Disney left and right. You know, every time they're gonna come out with the new Little Mermaid movie with a black Little Mermaid, and they're upset about that, and they're gonna try to cancel that movie. They love to cancel things. They just don't like when we quote unquote cancel their things. That's everyone
right?
has their sacred cows.
Yeah, I don't understand why a black mermaid is sacred to them. I mean, because they're not real.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, remember Megan Kelly and the whole, you know, Santa is was it Megan Kelly who said that Santa is white? You know, because there were black families that had images of black Santa, and she said, just so you know, everyone, Santa's white. It's like
It's like
Santa does not exist.
Saint Nicholas was a brown man.
Yeah, I'm actually doing our podcast right now is doing a pagan history of Christmas episode, learning kind of the pagan roots of Christmas. So yeah, it's been really interesting.
I mean, we're a Catholic family, and it's like, yeah, Saint Nicholas existed, sorta. Yeah. And he wasn't white.
He was Greek uh, in origin, but yeah, back then would have been he definitely wasn't the lily white guy with the long white beard that we imagine.
Yeah. Nor did he live in the North Pole and have 8 reindeer.
No, it's actually funny. That's a lot of that is, um, some of it is marketing. We always think that like Coca-Cola invented Santa Claus, which isn't necessarily true. But Thomas Nast, cartoonists from the 30s, and then a lot of it was certainly, it became a consumer holiday.
Everything everything's consumerism nowadays. At least
I'm
that's what.
definitely feeling that in this extended Black Friday season.
Oh my God. How many emails have I received from
Yeah.
Quest Diagnostics trying to convince me to take 20% off my next diagnostic test? It's like, really? Black Friday sales for that?
That's crazy. Yeah, it is. It's been overwhelming this year. It's
It's
really
like, I only went to you once for a COVID test.
yeah, it is amazing. How same thing with the Cyber Monday and stuff. It's gotten pretty out of
Black
control.
Friday, Cyber Monday. It's like, dude, if I'm gonna go shopping, I'll go shopping.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't bought anything yet. I'm just sitting back and waiting for as we get closer to Christmas, and then I do my panic shopping at the very end. My strategy.
I've got kids. I've gotta strategize which presents are gonna be sent to my house and which ones are gonna be sent to my mother's house so that they don't see them.
Yeah, when you have kids, it's a whole different world, I bet, with Christmas.
Well, the 1-year-old doesn't know anything, but the 4-year-old though.
Oh yeah.
He's starting to get it.
Oh yeah. That's the age. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anytime after 3, pretty much.
Yeah. And then he's trying to he's heard about the tooth fairy and is actually thinks that the tooth fairy is a scary entity. And I'm like, no, they give you money for your teeth.
He's got a point though. This is someone who creeps into your room at night and gets your
Yeah,
teeth from under your pillow. That's
he's scared of the tooth fairy.
anyone who's collecting teeth and paying for your teeth and sneaking into your room. And it's pretty creepy. He's got a point.
True. True. But and then my husband's like, how much does the tooth fairy pay now? And I'm like, how much did the tooth fairy pay you?
Oh man, it was like 25 cents or something. We were really I was underpaid for my teeth as a kid. Now looking back,
I got $1 a tooth.
that's pretty good. That's not too bad. The tooth market, I guess, has become a little bit more aggressive. And so
No.
the tooth economy has, it's a supply and demand issue. I guess there's not as many teeth now. People are getting more money.
I just remember losing my first 2 teeth the same day, and the tooth fairy gave me $2 in pennies under my pillow, and I still to this day cannot figure out how I did not wake up.
200 pennies under your pillow. Your parents are like ninjas. It's
They
amazing.
I shared a bed with my sister too, so really so much ninjaing going on there.
Wow, props to them. That's impressive.
Yeah, but so thank you so much for coming on to the Sex Political podcast. I really enjoyed talking with you, and I will make sure to put any links in our show notes to anything that you would like to share with my audience. Is there anything you would like to add before we leave?
So I mentioned, my old podcast was Square Off. That was the political podcast. Is mostly taking a hiatus at this point. But check out Midnight Facts for Insomniacs. We are not intentionally political, but I think everything at this point has a political viewpoint, and it's just really interesting and it's a fun one. But other than that, you can also go to shanerogers.net and check me out there as I'm going back to finally doing some shows now.
When's your next show coming up?
I'll be at the Crow's Nest January 15th, I think. And then before that, I'm just doing a bunch of little shows, just kind of preparing. This is me starting to get back into actually doing comedy. It was up until, once COVID hit, a lot of the comedy clubs that I love unfortunately closed down. Rooster Tea Feathers is now reopening, which is one of my favorite clubs, which I'm very excited about. And that kind of spurred me along with DNA's Comedy Lab, some other places that are finally starting to get going again, and that's got me back into the scene. And so I'm excited. So, but it's still, I'm in the beginning stages. I want to not be doing a bunch of old material. So I'm working on stuff and it'll be a process.
Awesome.
But yeah, everything will be at
Awesome.
shaneroberts.net.
I'll make sure to leave there will be links in the bot in the show notes, links everywhere so people can find you. And thank you so much for being on the Sexy Political podcast. And we'll s- and we'll be speaking soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks. Bye.